So, Article 6 of the Belgian Confession deals with an important but maybe unexpected topic, and that is the difference between canonical and apocryphal books. As you may know, the Roman Catholic Church um, includes the Apocrypha in its canon of Scripture, at least most of it. And so the reformers here are taking a position on that. And this is what it says. We distinguish between these holy books, that is, the books listed previously in Article 4 that are part of the canon of Scripture. We distinguish between these holy books and the apocryphal ones, which are the third and fourth book of Esdras, the books of Tobit, Judith, Wisdom, Jesus, Sirach, Baruch, what was added to the story of Esther, the song of the three children in the furnace, the story of Susanna, the story of Bel and the dragon, the prayer of Manasseh, and the two books of Maccabees. The church may certainly read these books and learn from them as far as they agree with the canonical books, but they do not have such power and virtue that one could confirm from their testimony any point of faith or of the Christian religion. Much less can they detract from the authority of the other holy books. So, first quick thing here about Article 6 is that here we have uh, the confession taking a stand on the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha, the words means something like hidden away or something of that nature. And essentially, these books or pieces of literature come out of the 400 years of silence, as they're referred to, from the end of the Old Testament or the book of Malachi to the beginning of the New Testament with the Gospels. And the church had an ongoing debate essentially about what to do with these books, whether they were canonical, whether they were scripture or not. There were two main schools of thought about that. One was sort of championed by Augustine, and for him, he believed that the church should view them as scripture. Jerome, however, disagreed with that. However, neither person believed that they should be avoided at all costs. It's not as though they were heretical or necessarily dangerous. The question was whether or not they were inspired, whether or not they were part of the canon of Scripture. And here, the confession is clearly joining with Jerome on this and saying that okay, we can read them and we can be benefited from them in certain ways, but they are not inspired. They are not part of the canon of Scripture. So that's the first quick point. They're taking a position on that question. The second quick point is that the reformers, even Luther and Calvin and those guys, they felt similarly. They utilized them. They read them. They were very familiar with the content of the apocryphal books, um, and they found them to be in some ways helpful. And one of the there's a couple of things that are helpful about the apocryphal books. Uh, One of them is that it's helpful to get a sense of the history of those 400 years because some really important things happened in that intervening time. Uh, the nation was conquered by Alexander the Great, and following the conquest by Alexander the Great, there was a process of Hellenization, it was called, that was going on. That's what Alexander attempted to do, which was change the culture to make it more of a Greek culture by, building gymnasiums and all sorts of different kinds of things that were central to Greek culture, to utilize the Greek language for formal or official kinds of documents and that kind of thing. Um, and as part of this, eventually there was a revolt because after Alexander died and there was kind of a struggle for control. Um, One of the eventual leaders, Antiochus Epiphanes, played a very central role. He ended up squashing the revolt and um, destroying aspects of Jerusalem and um, desecrating the temple by, among other things, sacrificing pigs on the altar. A lot of things. So Antiochus Epiphanes is very important, especially as it relates to the scriptures picture of the end times and the man of lawlessness and that kind of thing. Being that Antiochus Epiphanes was a kind of um, prefigure of that individual. So those kind of things are helpful in understanding, but also in that the what led to the Maccabean revolt was that more and more the Jewish religion was outlawed and various kinds of things were not allowed. And Judas Maccabees led a revolt, which was very successful. It actually led to the to what is now the celebration of Hanukkah, because the temple was rededicated and stuff at the as that revolt was successful, at least for a time, before it was then crushed again. Um, but there's a lot of important things, and that helps us to understand the messianic fervor that was already there in Jesus' day, because it wasn't so very long ago that revolt had taken place, and they were desperate to finally get rid of these the forces in the case of time of Christ, the Romans then, who were in control of the Holy Land. So all of that is kind of, or much of that is recounted in some of those books in the Apocrypha. So that's very helpful to know and to understand sort of the state of mind of the Jewish people during the time of Christ and the New Testament age. But there's also a danger, and that's uh, the third quick thing here. And the danger is, and this is why the reformers and the confession draws the line where it does, because there were some doctrines that the Roman Catholic Church had drawn almost, well, essentially and fundamentally from some of the content in the Apocrypha. The first of those was the idea of purgatory. There's an account about related to the Maccabean revolt and the way in which they offered prayers for the dead, because they found that the people who had died in the battle had actually secretly been worshiping idols, and so they had these prayers for them that God would have mercy on them. So that idea of there being a place of purgatory where souls could be released, that there was this kind of staging ground after death, grew largely from that account and a couple of other similar type things. So that was obviously viewed by the reformers as being a dangerous idea and contrary to Scripture, contrary to the canonical books that clearly teach that it's appointed to man once to die, and then comes the judgment, that there is no intervening place. Um, so that idea was dangerous, and they wanted to make sure that no doctrine was derived from these books. Along with that, though, went this idea of a meritorious almsgiving. That another part of that story was in the giving of alms, and in another book in the Apocrypha, the giving of alms, which somehow is meritorious for yourself or for the dead. Um, and so that idea led to the selling of indulgences, as Johann Tetzel is said to have um, is reported to have said. He was a seller of indulgences in Germany. As soon as a coin in the coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs. Um, so that kind of idea and the corruption of the church's message, the gospel, all the kind of things, in large part grew out of deriving doctrine from the Apocrypha. So that's the position that is taken. And it's an important position because there is a lot that can be learned from the Apocrypha in terms of the history of those 400 years and various aspects of it that contribute to the state of mind of the Jewish people in the days of Christ. But also it is clear that doctrines are not to be derived from these stories because of the way that they contradict the scriptures and lead the church into error. So, if you like, you may decide to read some of the apocryphal stories. It's not necessarily dangerous to do and can be helpful. We just need to understand where to draw lines in terms of what we can learn from them and what we can't learn from them. All right, so that is 3 quick things related to Article 6.